Welcome back to Season 4, Episode 4 of Life Beyond Loss, the podcast. This is a guest show where we share the most amazing and inspiring stories of how people are navigating their own grief and loss, and often through to healing and transformation as a result of that loss. I'm your host, Louise Kresick, grief and loss coach, and today I'm talking to Lucy Brand. This is a fabulous episode where we explore and talk in detail not only about Lucy's story, and she's sharing her experiences, but how grief and loss can result in trauma, and the kind of trauma that we might even hold on to for years without even knowing. And Lucy's an expert in how to release that trauma and in energy work as well. So this is a really, really worthwhile episode. Stay tuned and I know you're going to love it. Joined on today's show by Lucy Brand. Lucy's an energy worker and business coach, and she's supporting women to let go of traumatic experiences from the past and helping them to heal. And her work is specifically focusing on love, which is all around the heart chakra, which I'm sure she's going to explain in a moment, and also money, which is all around the root chakra. So I hope I've explained that little introduction well, Lucy, but welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yes, you did. Perfect. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And so tell us, where does this, your passion and purpose actually come from then?
I guess I've always had a passion for helping people. That's been from the beginning. And I've always been very intuitive, and it was after a traumatic burglary I experienced in my 20s that I kind of started my own healing journey, and it was through that it became apparent that I was meant to then do this work and that this was my calling, and it's just through years of working with women and kind of studying this and experimenting on myself and things like that with different healing modalities and business coaching and strategies, that I've come to realize that for us women, everything is kind of connected. So in terms of business, we want to lead from our heart-centered business, and that's where we connect and that's where we share love. And then our womb is actually our source of creation. And then our root chakra is actually the gateway to our yoni, which is all about, our yoni is the gateway to our root chakra. And our root chakra is all about money, safety, and security. And for women, they are all very much linked because it's all about energy.
I love this. It's absolutely fascinating to me, and I love, this bringing together of energy work and the kind of the business coaching as well. It feels like it's, I don't know, really powerful, I guess. And I'm a little bit woo myself as well, and I'm really fascinated, just the whole kind of holistic approach as well. And I haven't personally experienced some similar kind of healing work. I just think it's fantastic. And I also think when I talk about grief and loss as well, that it's really important to try and look at ourselves as a whole and kind of explore sort of things outside of, and I might be doing myself a disservice here as a coach, but to look at things, that there are other holistic kind of ways of dealing with things and healing things and coming through things as well. And I suppose that's what really spoke to me about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's more and more science is actually catching up with this now. We now know that, for example, our heart can store memories. And so when you do experience heartbreak through grief or loss, or for any kind of heartbreak, it's actually a physical thing in your body with your heart. Like your heart is actually broken. And so it is about finding out um, where where the grief is for you, if you like. This is most of my work is kind of detective work because every experience gets stored in our mind, our body, and on an energetic level, because we're all energetic beings. So you might be experiencing grief and loss, and that might be being stored in your lungs. That tends to be where grief and loss is held, trapped, those trapped emotions. Or it could be, but it could be anywhere. It could be your left toe. It could be your right knee. Like it's just, with this kind of energy work, I've really had to let go of control, because I never know what is going to happen in a session if that's the focus. If it's business strategy, it's a bit more straightforward.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and I suppose a lot of that is stored in the head, really.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the heart, we can link it to the heart, because it's coming from, and that's another thing with us women, like the root chakra and the yoni kind of linked, but that represents our pleasure and our joy and leading with bliss as well, which is really important if you want to sustain your business and keep going, because you have to enjoy your work. You have to be passionate about it.
Well, absolutely fascinating, especially, I don't know, I've just homed in there on what you said about grief and loss typically being stored in the lungs as well, which is really interesting to me. So we definitely need to have a conversation about that, I think.
Yeah, by all means.
But anyway, you mentioned, and you talk about you started to talk more about your own story as well, about your own sort of experiences of trauma and loss and things like that. And I wondered if you wouldn't mind maybe sharing some of your experience as well with us about that.
Of course. So I guess my first experience of loss was loss of a family member, which was my granddad at the age of 12, and that was really hard. I lost him to cancer, and I didn't really understand what cancer was at 12. I understood that my family was upset, they were angry, but no one really talked, and that was quite tricky, and I find it quite isolating and lonely. I had a younger sister, but she was a lot younger, so there wasn't really anyone to talk to about this, or process grief or process cancer or what it was. And then after that, I lost my grandma, who I was so close with, to cancer when I was 22, and that had a really, really big impact on me. I was angry for a very long time. I was angry at her for leaving me with my parents, and just angry with Source or whoever for her getting cancer in the first place. And this really impacted me in terms of how I was showing up in life, relationships. I couldn't really process my grief. And once again, it was something we didn't really talk about. We didn't share our experiences. It was just like, this is what's happened, get on with it. And I think what I've noticed very much in my own healing journey with this, and with my clients that I've worked with, is that talking about it is so important. But I feel like the other thing I've really noticed a pattern of, and once again, I can only speak to women, but is that we tend to have maybe not processed it, and then we have this guilt that we haven't got over it. And I spoke to several clients who feel guilty because they haven't got over it, and it's someone close to them died 5 years ago or 6 years ago, and it's like, But who makes those rules? There are no rules with grief. And I think it's making peace with your own process and exploring what that process is for you, no matter how long it takes.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with the one of the things I'm always sort of banging on about is the fact that, look, there are no rules in this. And I think that, I guess that people find that really difficult, don't they? Because I think the majority of people like to kind of feel as though, this is my experience, that they like to kind of feel as though they're in control of a process or a situation. And actually with grief, yes, there are aspects of it that we can kind of, you know, take control of, but ultimately it's about allowing it to just kind of do its thing, really, and to kind of be with those feelings and just be with that experience and just kind of fully accept it, almost embrace it, really. And I think, yeah, the no rules thing is the bit that people often struggle with the most.
Definitely, and I think that's it. The key is to allow it. We only actually hold on to emotions for 90 seconds. And then it's after that, it's our choice whether to hold on to that and store it in our mind, body, or energy field, or we can choose to release it. And so that's why it's so important to just allow yourself to feel it. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, shout, whatever it is, then give yourself the permission that you need to do that, and the time. Give yourself time. And I think that's the other problem in this, I don't know, maybe our culture or whatever, but someone passes and then it's like, immediately you've got inheritance tax to sort out, or a house to sort out. You've got all these, a funeral to arrange. You've got all these practical things. And then before you know it, you're back at work.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
Where is the emotional time there? And I feel like if you don't, however difficult and hard it is, if you don't make you a priority in that and your mental, emotional and energetic health, then it will kind of, for want of a better word, follow you around.
Yes.
Or haunt you, or just take longer to let go.
I agree totally. There's so many different I think factors as well that kind of I guess influence people in what, you know, how they prioritize things in their life. And often, for example, if you are a grieving mum or dad and you feel like, for example, you might have to hold the family together and there's dependents involved, and you tend to just go into that mode. And like you say, it's like early days, it's doing, and there's no being in any of that, really, because you're just so focused on, you know, and sometimes actually just going through the motions, because it can be a bit numbing in the early days, so there is no feeling. But yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, and I love that. I love the what sprung into my mind was 90-second rule about emotions, and I think that's a really, really valid point. So what is it how did that impact you then on, you know, in kind of not really feeling able to kind of talk about things initially, and that kind of, you know, just sucking it up kind of, I suppose it's a bit British in some ways, isn't it?
Yes, very British.
keep calm and carry on sort of thing.
Yeah, my family, I love them, but they're all northern. And so they came from families where it was very much, you didn't talk about your feelings, you don't talk about what's going on, and stiff upper lip kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of, I guess that I learned more about it when I went back as an older person to do the healing work. So what I discovered was that was actually in specific relation to money and money beliefs that I'd picked up. So, because especially, like, I think losing a loved one and money, love and money are very interconnected anyway, the energies. But yeah, this is what I found happened in my life. And when I went back to look at what beliefs had come out of this, I found that with my 12-year-old self, what became apparent there was when my granddad passed, we were all in York and we all lived in Cambridge, but we were up there when he passed. And then I just started secondary school. So it was a big new school. I didn't know anyone. I had one person I knew in my class from junior school. And when I think I maybe had like a week or 2 weeks off because it was cancer. It's like they weren't really sure when he was going to pass on. Mm-hmm. And then we had the funeral and everything. So, but when I came back, my teacher, I guess that she was doing the best that she could and everything, but she'd said to the children, my fellow classmates, that my granddad had died, so it's best not to upset me. And so they kind of took that as in, don't talk to me. Mm. So I was very confused. I was very alone because I just felt like I couldn't, no one was talking about what happened at home. No one was talking to me at school. And what I didn't understand was I got a bit of inheritance that my parents I looked after until I was 18. But I didn't understand this money exchange for someone dying. I was like, what is that? That's just so weird. Mm. And so the feelings or beliefs that came out of that was I think we spoke about this, I had loss equaled money, isolating equaled money, alone equaled money, losing someone you loved equaled money, confusion as well, and all these trapped emotions and beliefs were stored in me from that time and were then impacting me in current reality. Wow. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's just I can understand but the impact of how our early experiences, in childhood and how kind of we process things is sort of stored up and just sort of like manifests itself years later. It's just absolutely amazing to me, and I guess it's something that people don't necessarily often think about consciously as well, and might not even be aware of. So where then is the kind of the point of discovery for you, or how do you kind of understand and identify that this is what might actually be occurring?
So I think I think like it comes back to, this is the way I work, it comes back to me being quite intuitive. So kind of I will get a hit of what's going on or where I need to go back to. And for that example with my granddad, what I did was I went back to little Lucy at the age of 12 and I had a conversation with her. And then I saw it, I get visuals as well. So I saw it all. I saw me in the playground on my own and no one speaking to me. And then I just had a conversation with her and I understood all this stuff. And I can't remember because I kind of go into a trance when I do this work, but I think definitely emotional freedom technique I'm huge on, because that's something you can do yourself at home. And also there's no right or wrong way of doing it, but it also speaks to your mind, your body and your energy. And that's why I found it so effective. So I think I did some tapping on her and on myself and just kind of explained to her what was going on and why, the teacher did that and why no one was talking to her. And that I think the biggest thing there as well was like the confusion around money. So that kind of led to feelings of overwhelm when it came to money. So it was about releasing that confusion and that overwhelm as a 12-year-old child so that I could step up and be an adult when it came to money in my current reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I love EFT. This is one of my recent discoveries, actually. Somebody wrote a guest blog for me around EFT for grief and did a bit of a demo video, which was fabulous. And over the years, I've kind of gone backwards and forwards with it. I was aware of it, and certain people that I've worked with have said, you know, how about trying this and da da da, and then I've tried it and gone, nah. And then recently, say like in the last few months or so, I'd really kind of discovered its impact, which is it's just absolutely, like, I'm still in awe of it. I'm just like, wow, this stuff actually works. Yeah.
It speaks to the energy centers again, because it's all about the pressure points that you tap on are actually acupuncture points, which are energy centers. So that's why it releases the trapped emotion from your body and your energy. And there's more and more research now into, and scientific evidence to back up that we do store trapped emotions in parts of in our organs. Like I said, grief and crying tends to be the lungs. So quite often, what they will say is if someone's grieving, they might have a chest infection or a cough or a cold. And I have noticed that if it's been recent that someone's lost someone, then they can have chest infection stuff. And it's an energetic thing, and it's about releasing that through EFT, or there are other modalities out there as well. I don't know if you've heard of the emotion code.
No, I haven't.
Well.
No.
Yeah, that's really amazing too. I can't remember the guy who invented it, but that's really powerful as well. So it's kind of like it's a combination of a lot of stuff that I blend together, shamanic healing and all kinds of stuff over my years that I found really help to move this stuff. But through that, I've learned that we do store these experiences and these trapped emotions in our bodies and on an energetic level as well as our minds.
But that blend is so important, I feel, because like I said earlier on, you know, everybody's experience of grief is so unique, isn't it? When you've got that blend of different kind of things that you can tap into for people, you are then sort of meeting them wherever they're at with their trauma or their experience, and then you're able to kind of, you know, bring forward whatever tools and things that you need to help that person. And that's kind of how I look at it. I describe my coaching stuff as a bit of a melting pot of all the stuff that I've learned over the years as well. And I think that it's really important that to be able to help people and assist people in a way that really kind of is right for them, and depending on, you know, what they might be kind of storing up, I guess.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to ask you as well. So if so you've talked about obviously the fact that it may manifest in kind of health related issues, coughs, colds, that sort of stuff. If somebody is feeling less intuitive, and some people will run the story, don't they, that they're not intuitive at all, what are the kind of signs and things might somebody look out for that kind of might, you know, just sort of be a bit of a signal to them that they might be kind of storing stuff from, it could be from years ago, I guess?
I think it's like if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling stagnant, if you feel like you've hit a ceiling, it's those kind of usual patterns in life where you're like, why is this not working? You know, why is this not working? I've tried everything. Then that's where I'd start with. And then I just, everyone is intuitive. Everyone is able to connect with source or connect with whatever you want to call it, your heart, your inner being, whatever it is. And on your body, because your body holds all the answers. Your body has so much wisdom. And the thing is, your body doesn't necessarily speak to you in words, it speaks to you in images or feelings. And the thing with the mind is, the mind warps stuff. As you know, the ego mind, it wants to keep you safe and it wants to keep you right. So experiences, it will change them. Like, it's suppressed traumatic experiences for me, and I have no access to that memory, but I have accessed it through my body. because my body remembers and will share it with me correctly. So it's about, if you are hitting a block, if you're not getting where you want to be, if you feel like you're hitting a ceiling or something's not working out, then I would either suggest working with someone who can help you bring it out, because I feel like there's a place where you can get to on your own, but then sometimes I feel like you do need someone's help, like to hold your hand and help you through it, because all of my healing, I've learned stuff through teachers, but a lot of it has been work on myself to get to where I want to be. And I've always worked with someone who's one step ahead of me in the process, or ahead of me in the process, so can help me, can hold my hand and get me through it. And so if you are choosing not to work with someone, then I would suggest to sit quietly and ask yourself, why is this not working? And I would meditate on that. Like, I know lots of people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to meditate, Lucy. I'm so against it. I've got so much resistance. I know, I get that. But honestly, if you want to know what's going on. Or another thing I would try, so a lot of my answers sometimes drop in when I'm practicing EFT. So the way I like to practice it is I bring up all the negative first, and then I reinforce the positive. And so when I bring up the negative, I might then be like, okay, that's why that's not working for me. I've got a little side note which I can share, which might make that more practical, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was going to buy, this is several years ago, I was going to buy a new phone, and I had so much resistance to it, and I couldn't work out what was wrong. I was like, why have I got so much resistance to this? It's ridiculous. All I have to do is phone the phone company. I'm on a contract. I've always paid my bills. Like, there's no reason to have resistance to this. Like, it's going to be an easy thing. They'll want to upgrade me anyway. So I tapped on it, and I was like, even though I've got all this resistance, I was like, what's it? And what came to mind was, when I lived in London, I got burgled, but I also had my handbag stolen twice. And so what came out from that tapping was, I'm not responsible enough to have a new phone.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I tapped that out, or EFT'd it out. And then I was like, straight on the phone company, of course, got the phone, blah, blah, blah. It was easy. But so that's another way I would suggest it. It's just about tuning into yourself, and I guess giving yourself the space and time to look at why. And I think that's the thing. Like I said, with grief, it's about making you a priority.
Yeah.
In all of this.
Yeah, I think in the first instance, it's actually giving yourself permission to allow yourself that space, isn't it, to explore things. But I also think, so yeah, very similar to what you said. For me, it's about just staying open and having a curious mind, as opposed to kind of, judging things that come up, or trying to kind of analyze it to death, which is one of my previous patterns of behavior of I've got a very analytical mind, which actually serves me very well in business and things like that, but then also have a tendency, so when it's emotional stuff, to try and analyze it and things. So I think it's definitely being just curious and being open to whatever's there, and just not kind of labeling or judging, or which is also sometimes a bit easier said than done, I guess, if you're not practicing, every day. But I love that.
I think it comes back to that. How long should you grieve for? Everyone's different, and it's about finding what helps you and what works with you.
Definitely. So going back to your story about, with your losing your grandparents, and then you said that this kind of sort of had an impact then, years later in your business. So what specifically, how did that kind of, manifest, and how did you then kind of work with that?
Well, I think it was just uncovering what the beliefs were, and then releasing them. on a mind, body and energetic level, and then re-imprinting with new beliefs, simple things as well, because I think that's what we forget sometimes. We're very complex creatures, and sometimes we like to make things more complicated than they need to be. Our minds do. So it was just coming back to simple beliefs and re-imprinting them, like I am a good steward of money, I am a master of money, I understand money and how it works. It was things like that, because I was speaking to the little girl who was confused by money, or I can't remember the exact one I had, but I had to do a lot of work on equating money with loss. Like I would only receive money if I what was the belief? I would only receive money if I lost someone who I loved. I mean, that's really deep. So I had to do, and it took me a while. Like I wasn't able to just change it over, I'm not even sure, a couple of days. That one took a bit of work, like to keep going over to, I'd muscle test. I'm a big muscle tester, and it would be, oh no, I still believe that. Okay, let's keep going. So it's kind of like this detective work, which I find super exciting, because when you are on the other side, when you've got through it or you've processed it, it feels incredible. It feels really good, because then you're able to go to the next level in your life and business, because they're so the same if you have your own business. But yeah, and I think with my grandma dying older when I was 22, there was just so much anger there, and that definitely impacted my romantic relationships, because I was just shut down and angry and scared and alone. I put up a lot of walls, because the only person who really understood me had gone, and I felt I didn't know what to do. So that probably impacted my personal life more than it did my business.
Yeah, that I can really relate to as well, because I think that somehow in the midst of losing my parents, I think with my mum in particular, we had a very strong relationship, and it was a very sudden death, very unexpected, and I was only 25 as well at the time. Started to equate those beliefs around the fact that people that I love, absolutely love to death, will always leave me. And so that really impacts. So when I first met my husband, or then to be husband years later, it was like that, like I could, what you said about the walls going up and being kind of a bit shut off with all of that, it took me such a long time to make the link and to recognize where that was coming from, but then also to then, as you said, do the work around that. And that does take time, doesn't it? I think we live in a society sometimes where it's like instant gratification. I think people want like a bit of a quick fix. And it takes time, doesn't it, to change and work with those beliefs sometimes.
Exactly. Like it's just, if you think how long you've been, I mean, it won't take that amount of time to get over it, but if you think how long you've been carrying those trapped emotions within you, or that experience within you, then it's going to take a little bit of time to identify what specifically the beliefs are, because I usually find if it's traumatic, there's several. Like it's not just one. And when I've done this work, like sometimes I don't know, I'll pick something like, it could be a new belief of I am worthy and deserving of love, but then if you muscle tested for I am worthy and deserving of self-love, it might be a no. Like, so it's the language is really important as well. And sometimes it takes a while to iron out the creases, and really get your whole being into this new state of being, in this place where you want to be, where you've let go of the past.
Yeah, I like that. It takes a while to iron out the creases.
Yeah.
I just like that, the way it's phrased. Um, so, I mean, you've talked about, you know, the things that you did, the things that have helped you, and the ways that you help other people to release this stuff as well. Overall, what is it that you think you kind of take from this experience in general?
I think that when someone passes over, and I mean, this can include heartache as well, like if your relationship breaks up. But I think if you lose a family member, it's like speak to someone, have conversations with your whole family, have conversations with your children, because they're really intuitive kids. Like, and I think this is something um, that I think people don't realize or forget, is that the thing with children is that they're ridiculously intuitive, but as they grow up, they're taught to kind of go against that intuition, because parents will say everything's fine when it's clearly quite not, like they're picking up on that it's not. So I think it's finding a level to speak to the child about what's going on and start conversations about how you're feeling, and what's going on within the family. And then if you're still struggling with it, then I would say the next step is to seek help. Like, my suggestion would be someone that does the energetic work and the coaching work as well, just because that's what I know to be true, is that we store these trapped emotions. But it's whoever resonates with you. But so I think it would be so important when you've lost someone to carve out that time for you and make yourself a priority. So if you work with someone, then that's like an hour or 90 minutes or whatever, where that's all about you, and you can leave everything else about what you've got to do, like arrange the funeral or whatever, or get over this or whatever it is. You can leave that at the door. And yeah, and then I would just continue with progressing and moving through it. And if you want free stuff, I mean, there's loads of free videos on YouTube. I'm a massive YouTube fan. So that would be a place to start as well. If you're like, I don't even know where to start, then check out YouTube, check out Google, write in Google, like, I'm struggling with whatever it is, and just start making yourself a priority.
Yeah, I love those points. I think you pick out some really important points there, that this is the single most important gift that you can give to yourself in this very difficult time. I really wholeheartedly feel that. And it doesn't, like you said, whatever you're drawn to, doesn't matter whether it's a therapist or a coach or a healer or all of the above, you know, just to allow yourself that time for you. And yes, there is masses of resources out there, isn't there, for, you know, things that you can tap into for free. There's, you know, there's videos, there's blogs, there's podcasts, you know, there's all kinds of stuff, isn't there, that, and it is now, and this is the beauty of the age that we live in, it's now kind of widely available. And I do feel that, I don't know whether you feel this, Lucy, but I think that the conversations now are happening a bit more openly and more freely because of, you know, the internet. I know people have a kind of lot of negative perceptions about social media, but also I think there's a lot of positives around allowing conversations like this, and generally being more open with conversations about grief and trauma and all that sort of stuff. And it really is helping to, I think, make a shift, I feel, for future generations. I don't know what you think.
Definitely, I agree. I think people are becoming much more open. I think people are becoming much more open and talking about mental health, emotional health, physical health, like all of these things. And I just think it's beautiful, because we need to start having more conversations around it. And I was saying to you earlier, there's so many taboo topics that we never used to be able to talk about. I mean, kind of grief and death was one. But I've seen a rise in death doulas, who help in end of life. And it's just beautiful. The work they do is beautiful and much needed, and support the whole family. Or more people are being vocal about going to see therapists, or talking about their mental health or emotional health issues. And I think this is just brilliant, because it's about time we talked about these things. And I said to you, it's like money, relationships, sex, all these things, people, we can't talk about that. And the more we talk about it, the more, and have conversations, the more we realize that we're not alone, and that other people are experiencing that. And I think one of the things with grief is you can tend to isolate yourself and think that you're the only one struggling with that. And so finding someone that you resonate with, or many people, it could be a group, is so important and key, no matter what you're going through, whether it's grief or anything else.
Yeah, I I love that. I think that for me it's about, normalizing, for the want of a better word, these types of conversations, and like you say, reducing the isolation around it, because the journey you go on, as we've said, is unique. So to some extent it is kind of for you to walk, but then you don't need to feel as though you're, just walking this on your own. There's people around you that can be beside you, and so on. So yeah, I absolutely love those words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing those.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been such an honour to be a contributor to the conversation as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Before we go, we must just share with people where they can find you as well.
Yeah. So you can find me on my website, is lucy-brand, brand.com. And I've also got a couple of free resources there, like a success meditation, and also how to set financial goals in business and achieve them. And you can also find me on LinkedIn under Lucy Brand, and Instagram under Lucy Charlotte Brand. And reach out and connect.
Perfect, thank you. And of course we'll put all the links below in the show notes for everybody as well. So yes, thank you so much, Lucy. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, and thanks so much for having me.